So here we have Gaudi's very first house ever, the Casa Vicens. Very similar to Frank Lloyd Wright's first house, right? Both of them were young. Gaudi was 31 when he designed this. Frank Lloyd Wright was 26. They were just young architects, both of them, and they got these commissions and they got a lot of freedom just to design whatever they wanted. And this was their chance to sort of create almost a first manifesto of what were their ideals for the home. Frank Lloyd Wright built his first house, the Winslow House, in the prairie style, which he described later as sort of being his first chance to experiment with his new style that he created himself. And he put a lot of attention into just the brickworks, into the outside facade details, and we can see that Gaudi has done the same. The sheer variety of different styles and cultures brought together here reminds me honestly of The Mandalorian Season 1, where the director took a lot from Japanese samurai films and also from obviously the sci-fi genre, as well as spaghetti westerns, and really combined just the shots, the elements, the patterns, textures, and typical characters from these in order to create something that was both unique but also referenced other things and just had this whole new fun visual style. In the same way, we can see in this building how Gaudi pulled a lot from nature, but also in that he used the Spanish typical ironwork technique that we see in these bars. We also see a ton of Mughal influence in just the pattern works, the shapes, and the fact that it's got, like Muslim minarets in the very top. And we also see a lot of influence from Asian colors, right? These bright color palettes, the flat shades of both the tiles and some of the patterns on the inside. Gaudi wanted to pay homage to the natural forms that he found on the site when he first arrived, one of which was the palmetto palm. He actually cast these from an actual palm leaf. The other one was these yellow flowers that he found a ton on the site, and so he worked them into all throughout the outside of the building on these tile illustrations. Gaudi is clearly a lover of nature, but also of structure, and he doesn't try to hide or disguise it. Here we see how the beams, which are holding up the upper floors, are gilded, and in between are put these tiles with plant motifs. Each of these pieces of furniture was also custom made for the building by Gaudi, and we can see how he uses detail intentionally, having this lower part having less detail, a lot of detail around the center where your eye level line is, and then also more as your eye tends to rise and look at the beauty of the ceiling. We can notice that he uses a ton of mirrors in this building to create the effect that this room seems larger than it is. We can completely see the Muslim influence here in the smoking room. All these little scoop designs are classic in Muslim architecture. You can see here that in the original construction, Gaudi only built what is now half of the house today because of a wall that was part of a convent next door. We can see that in 1925, the house was massively increased in size as well as the property. The current owner actually went to Gaudi asking for him to be in charge of the additions, but Gaudi was working on the Sagrada Familia and was very into that work, so instead recommended one of his protégés and students. Gaudi's student attempted to maintain the same design language, and we can see very little differences between Gaudi's on the left and his student's additions on the right. Over the next few years, as the house changed owners, a ton of the property was sold for the growing city around it, as well as the waterfall and chapel were destroyed, and several other renovations made to the building. This much simpler upper space was designed, as is typical for those types of homes in the time, for the servants' quarters and where they work, which is why we see much simpler walls and styles. Even the roof has just bare rafters with no ornamentation. And it's also why we just see a ton of windows. We have all these little protrusions that allow it to bring in plenty of light, but obviously not direct sunlight because we don't want that glare. So here we can see that Gaudi has made quite a navigable roof. You can move around in between, of course, all these large slanted roofs, tiles. Obviously, he wanted people to be able to enjoy the view from up here, since originally would have been a lot of nature and even likely the mountains. But today, of course, is just a lot of buildings surrounding everything. The portion by his protege, however, has a lot more usable space, arguably. Even this large top portion of the stair tower and chimneys has been made something that people could stand or sit on. To summarize, to put it all on the highest level of intellectual precision, this house is sick.